Adrian Kane trudged through the polished corridors of the Interstellar Council's citadel, the hum of grav lifts and the occasional flicker of holographic displays reflecting off the chrome walls doing little to soothe his war-weary mind. The Galactic War had left him hollow in ways metals could never fill, and yet here he was, being led to a ceremony meant to celebrate his service. A ceremony he suspected would be as awkward as it was ostentatious. His uniform, still smelling faintly of smoke and engine grease, seemed almost comically formal in contrast to the grandeur of the hall. "Lieutenant Kane," a voice boomed, slightly tinny from the council's amplification. "Your deeds in the Skara offensive are unparalleled. You have brought honor to humanity." Applause erupted, echoing off the walls, but Adrian's attention was drawn to a platform at the far end, where the counselors gestured toward an unusual figure standing stiffly behind a barrier of gleaming energy rails. The figure was a woman, or at least human in form. Her skin bore the subtle luster of moonstone, smooth and reflective under the ambient light, and her hair fell in silken waves down her back. But it was her ears that caught Adrian off guard. Long, elegant extensions that reached almost to her shoulders, tapering to fine points that gave her an otherworldly aura. She met his gaze with calm defiance, her eyes sharp, intelligent, and, to Adrian's dismay, entirely unamused by the pomp surrounding them. "And," the announcer continued, "in recognition of your service, you are granted this reward, Lysera of the Verilians." There was a dramatic pause, the sort that demanded awe or reverence, but all Adrian felt was a mix of disbelief and awkwardness. He swallowed dryly. "A reward?" he asked under his breath, muttering more to himself than anyone else. Lysera's lips curved into a small, mocking smile. "I suppose congratulations are in order," she said, her voice smooth and tinged with amusement. "Though I should warn you, Lieutenant, I bite metaphorically, of course. And occasionally literally, if the occasion is dull enough." The hall erupted in nervous laughter at the remark, but Adrian only blinked. "Humor? Here? Now?" He cleared his throat. I wasn't expecting a person. Not like this." His words stumbled over themselves, betraying the discomfort he felt. "Not like what?" she asked, tilting her head in a way that made her ears sway ever so slightly. "A reward should be interesting. Something you don't have to plug into a charging port or navigate through bureaucratic star charts." She paused, then added, "Though I suppose both of those can be tedious, yes?" Adrian couldn't help but chuckle despite himself. Her wit was sharp, delivered with a calm confidence that seemed entirely foreign in this setting of ceremony and forced decorum. For the first time since he returned from the front lines, he felt something other than exhaustion weighing on him, curiosity. As the council members droned on about honor and duty, Adrian noticed subtle details that marked Lysera as far from a mere ornamental prize. Her hands, though delicate in appearance, flexed with precision. Her eyes tracked movement with calculated focus, and when a young council scribe tripped over a cable projecting a holomap, she leaned forward with barely perceptible speed to steady him before he could topple entirely. She was observant, agile, and entirely unbothered by the ceremony, her small acts of competence revealing a quiet authority that the council had evidently overlooked or ignored in favor of spectacle. By the time the formalities ended, Adrian was both exasperated and intrigued. Lysera offered him a slight nod and muttered, "Try not to get us vaporized on the way out, will you? I have standards." The corners of his mouth twitched upward. Standards. This woman had standards. And perhaps, Adrian thought with a mixture of awe and dread, she would demand more of him than any metal ever could. As they walked together to the shuttle bay, their shoulders brushing occasionally, the tension of ceremony softened under shared humor. Adrian had expected awkward silence or resentment. Instead, he found banter. Lysera teased him about his clumsy gait in the grav lift, and Adrian returned fire about her tendency to stare at every blinking light as if it were plotting something sinister. They laughed quietly, a fragile camaraderie forming against the backdrop of a universe still raw with war. And for the first time since the war began, Adrian felt a strange thrill. Not from victory, not from duty, but from the unexpected prospect of partnership with someone whose wit, intelligence, and hidden strengths promised to turn what he assumed would be a burdensome obligation into a story far more unpredictable and far more human than he could have ever imagined. The shuttle's engines hummed with a gentle vibration, a steady pulse beneath Adrian's feet as it cut through the void between star systems. Lysera sat across from him, her long ears brushing the edge of the console as she fiddled with a small, intricate device that seemed to defy his understanding of engineering. He watched her work, fascinated by the ease with which she manipulated alien technology, her fingers moving in a blur, leaving traces of light in the air that disappeared almost instantly. "Are you showing off?" he asked, trying to mask his awe with irritation. Lysera's eyes glinted. "Showing off? No. Just reminding you that if we end up in a firefight, I can operate systems you haven't even been trained on." She gave a small shrug, as if it were obvious. "And that's assuming I don't take control of the shuttle and leave you behind to explain why a human pilot got lost in a sector full of sentient asteroids." Adrian groaned. "I should have known the Council's gift came with a warning label." Her laugh was soft but sharp, carrying a note of amusement that warmed the sterile cabin. "Warning labels are for toasters and bureaucrats, Lieutenant. I'm neither." She tilted her head, and for a moment, the movement made her ears sway like reeds in a breeze. "Besides, I enjoy your panicked expressions. It's entertaining." Their journey was far from uneventful. Despite the war having officially ended, the remnants of hostile factions and rogue warlords lurked in sectors where the Council's reach was weak. On more than one occasion, their shuttle was tailed by sleek attack craft, their engines blinking with aggressive intent. Each encounter tested their teamwork in ways that neither had expected. Adrian learned quickly that Lysera's combat instincts were impeccable. She didn't just fight. She anticipated, adapted, and executed with a grace that made his own reflexes feel clumsy. During one particularly tense chase through an asteroid field, Lysera leaned over the navigation console with a mischievous grin. "Try not to crash into a rock, Lieutenant. It would ruin my perfectly good sense of humor." Adrian, hands gripping the controls, muttered under his breath, "You're impossible. Impossibly helpful," she corrected smoothly, tapping a few buttons that rerouted power to the shields and boosted their maneuvering thrusters. The shuttle darted around jagged rocks, narrowly avoiding collision, while Lysera's calm voice gave him instructions with playful impatience. "Left. No, your other left. Oh yes, perfect. I'd call that a human miracle if I didn't already suspect it was sheer luck." By the time the danger passed, both were laughing, relieved laughter that carried the tension away like smoke in the void. Adrian realized that humor had become their secret weapon, a buffer against the unrelenting stress of survival. Lysera's teasing was not just playfulness. It was a way to keep them both sharp, to ensure neither forgot how absurdly fragile life could be, even in the depths of space. As they traveled, their conversations grew more personal. Lysera revealed fragments of her life before enslavement. Tales of rebellion against her own people, whispered intrigues in alien courts, and escapades that sounded almost ludicrous in their audacity. Adrian shared war stories, though he softened the bloodier details, allowing humor to lace his recollections. They discovered that despite species differences, laughter could bridge even the deepest cultural gaps. One evening, as they orbited a gas giant with swirling turquoise clouds, Lysera leaned against the viewport, her reflection merging with the storm outside. "You know," she said quietly, "I was not meant to be free, yet here I am, and yet I find I enjoy it more than I expected." Adrian glanced at her, noticing the way her ears caught the ambient light and flickered like fine metallic threads. "I think we're both discovering that freedom isn't always what you expect it to be." He paused, then added with a teasing smirk, "Though I still maintain that you're enjoying tormenting me more than actual freedom." "Perhaps," she admitted, a sly glint in her eyes. "But it keeps life interesting, doesn't it?" By the time they reached the outer colonies, their dynamic had shifted. No longer was Lysera simply a gift bestowed upon him. She was a partner, an equal in skill and insight, and an irreplaceable source of levity in a universe that still bore the scars of war. Adrian understood now that the journey ahead would be dangerous, unpredictable, and exhausting. But with her at his side, it would also be far richer than he could have imagined. Humor had softened the edges of fear, skill had forged trust, and the bond between them was beginning to take shape, unbreakable even amid the glittering chaos of the stars. Adrian Kane and Lysera floated in the command deck of the starship, orbiting the rim of the galactic core where the remnants of old conflicts simmered like embers beneath a thin crust of diplomacy. The messages on the holoscreen blinked with warnings, political communiques, and veiled threats from factions still bitter over the war. Adrian rubbed his temples, wondering if anyone had ever survived this level of paperwork with their sanity intact. Lysera leaned over his shoulder, fingers brushing against the console as she muttered sarcastic commentary on each incoming transmission. "You know," she said, glancing at him with a grin, "there's a galactic proverb about stress and paperwork, but it only applies to species who can't manipulate quantum encryption with their toes, which makes it irrelevant to you, I think." "I feel insulted," Adrian muttered, half smiling, "though mostly because I don't know what it means." "Exactly," she replied, "and that's why you need me." Their partnership, forged in battle, humor, and mutual respect, had been tested repeatedly in the weeks following the war. They had uncovered plots by rogue commanders who sought to destabilize fragile peace treaties, negotiated with alien lords whose concept of honor involved more explosions than diplomacy, and evaded assassins whose favorite pastime seemed to be practicing their aim on unsuspecting starship crews. Yet through it all, they had relied on one another not just for survival, but for sanity. Lysera's quick wit had saved them from despair, and Adrian's grounded pragmatism had kept her from charging headlong into traps. Now the stakes were higher than ever. Intelligence had revealed a conspiracy to detonate a series of orbital mines near the core, a plan that could ignite a chain reaction destroying entire systems. Adrian's hands hovered over the controls as Lysera outlined a counter-strategy with precision, her long ears twitching as she tapped commands that synchronized shields, weapons, and navigation in a ballet of calculated chaos. "Step 1, she said. "Distract the aggressors with a decoy pulse. Step 2, override their targeting arrays. Step 3, sit back and pretend you're a hero while I actually do the work." Adrian chuckled, shaking his head. "You make it sound so simple." "That's because it is," she said, smirking. "Simple if you have brains and reflexes, both of which I note you occasionally display." As the operation began, flashes of laser fire and thrumming energy waves lit the void outside. The shuttle danced among debris and detritus of destroyed vessels, a symphony of controlled chaos orchestrated by the unlikely duo. Lysera's coordination and Adrian's instincts meshed seamlessly, each anticipating the other's movements in a way that blurred the line between human and alien intuition. They executed the plan flawlessly, neutralizing the threat with minimal damage and leaving the would-be conspirators utterly disarmed and flabbergasted. Once the last signal had been silenced, Adrian leaned back in his seat, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow. Lysera stretched, her ears flicking with satisfaction. "I'd say that went well," she said, "though I can't decide if you're lucky or finally competent." "Don't push it," Adrian replied, grinning. "You've been pushing me enough for weeks already." She laughed, a light, melodic sound that seemed to fill the empty spaces of the ship more than the hum of the engines. "Fair enough, but admit it, you've changed. You're not the soldier who blindly followed orders anymore. You think, improvise, and even joke in the face of danger." Adrian paused, considering her words. The war had carved him into a rigid, duty-bound soldier, hardened and closed off. But the journey with Lysera had taught him the value of partnership, the strength in mutual respect, and the necessity of levity even in the direst circumstances. Humor had become a shield as important as armor. Trust, a weapon as vital as his blaster. He had learned that victory was hollow without connection, and that empathy and cooperation could turn survival into triumph. "I guess I have," he admitted finally. "And I guess I have you to thank for it." Lysera's grin softened, just a fraction. Don't get sentimental on me. I'm not here for thanks. Noted, Adrian said, his eyes sweeping the stars stretching endlessly beyond the viewport. But it matters anyway. They watched the swirling light of the core together, the remnants of conflict fading behind them, replaced by a fragile, luminous hope. Ahead lay uncharted territories, political intrigue, and perhaps more danger, but also the certainty of companionship, of shared purpose, and of a bond forged in adversity yet tempered by laughter. For the first time since the war began, Adrian felt at peace. Not because the galaxy was safe, but because he no longer faced it alone. Lysra was no longer a prize or a reward. She was an ally, a friend, and something more. A mirror reflecting the best in him and a partner who made the vast, uncharted universe feel just a little less lonely. Together, they would navigate whatever came next, not as master and possession, but as equals, ready to face the stars with courage, humor, and unshakable trust.